from my heart for coming up and just supporting us.
Women should keep going up, and any opportunity you get, you should take.
And we have to lift each other up. And I'll just, हमारा जो network है, Women Inspiring Network. And
would you like to stand so that the guests at the back can see?
Yes.
Okay.
So our network, which is the Women Inspiring Network, which sort of came about, and it's a non-for-profit. Last year, हमने Davos में we did 3 panel discussions, but this year we're doing 10 plus panel discussions with 50 different speakers from 15 different countries, all on women leadership, AI, climate, generational health, generational wealth. So I'm really thankful that you could join us today. And Smriti ji, tell us, you should inspire us, ki how can we lift each other up, because aapne bola.
So all the ladies and the smattering of gentlemen who believe that women should have equity and equality, please visit us at Promenade 55 We Lead Lounge, opposite the Morisani Hotel. That is a culmination of 1 year of a lot of hard work of bringing cohorts of global corporations, policymakers, thought leaders together. We've till now interfaced with 4,500 delegates. We have created geopolitical teams which impact women in business. One which is relevant to the Commonwealth nations. This year in India at 250 locations, we are reaching out to 100,000 females who own businesses, introducing them to enhanced capital options through financial institutions, helping them understand the life cycle of their business and their product, and whether their potential will outlive the life cycle of the product or the business idea. Helping them also, if they want to be a part of the global supply chain, understand compliances, certification, and then with agencies such as Kearney, the best of the best, get connected to the global supply chain. We are making a case for it in India, for the world, after 2025, when we do this program with 100,000 businesses which are owned by women. We then take the program to 56 Commonwealth countries. Yesterday, we launched a partnership with the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum on the issue of women's leadership in the energy sector, particularly in Asia, and what is the significance of that partnership. Prerna, if you can just, thank you. What is the significance of that partnership? We all know internationally that there is a lot of conversation around climate. There's not enough money around it, because people think it's a problem that needs to be solved. They don't look at it as an opportunity that can financially benefit, especially women. So we are now creating a cadre of women in Asia who will be skilled in the evolving carbon markets to audit and verify credits, so that these jobs at least are some which hopefully the men do not consume completely. Apart from that, I've had a close to a decade-old history of working with Bill Gates and his foundation, also his ventures. In the venture sphere, we try and identify medical innovations, health innovations, particularly if they help women. Also women scientific community members who want to take their innovation to the enterprise stage. Mercifully, we have a philanthropist who gives money for opportunity without strings attached. One such example is the PPH drape. Many of you know that every year close to 700,000 women die giving birth to children. Because when children are birthed, many of them lose so much blood, it's difficult for the doctor or the health worker to compute while the incident is taking place. Bill last March gave me the WHO specs to say, I need to get this made, but at $1. Can somebody work this out in India? We found a vendor who not only made the PPH drape at $1, but in fact our specifications were better than those offered by the WHO. But what is an instrument without a protocol? We realized in India that there is no medical protocol which is available through legislation or administration for every healthcare worker in the country with regards to the use of PPH drape. In the private sector, many were selling PPH drapes where the drape itself was soaking the blood, in fact, and not helping the woman. So the medical community felt this is something which is not helping. So now ICMR, which is our regulator in terms of medical research and licenses such medical innovations and such devices, is creating the first ever protocol in India, which we will, through our friends in the United Nations and our partners in government ensure that we not only share this one medical intervention with vendors and philanthropists across the world, but we also complement it with a protocol so that the medical community knows how to use it to help save women when they're giving birth. Many such, I think, interventions that we've managed to do. The only distinction is we use the money for realities rather than rhetoric. Because I think that when you make the case for women and their agency and their potential and only limit to philanthropy, only limited to donations, there comes a time where causes run out of money. But money never runs out for money. So we are creating that business potential for women. In India, we have seen that potential. 230 million women got a bank account for the first time when the government decided that bank officers need to go to the homes of women so that they can get their own separate bank account. What happened after that was nothing less than a financial revolution. The government introduced something called the Mudra Yojana, which is not a gendered financial instrument. Then 300 million women turned up to take the loans without collateral for small businesses. What is brilliant about the evidence that we've created in India is that the NPA, when compared between male-owned businesses and female-owned businesses, female-owned businesses have an NPA of less than 1.9%, sometimes as less as 1.5%. Male-owned businesses NPA oscillate between 2.3% to 2.5%. So we've made a case in India to how, if you invest in women, they know how to service the credit. And they're great investments because you then create a circular impact in your economies. Many in the room possibly know that every year the consumer spend power of women across the world is around $32 trillion. And the foods that are eaten in packaged goods, that alone in terms of spend is $35 trillion. But how many of those companies are headed by women or have women in the upper echelons of power? We see lots of them at entry-level jobs, but when the money gets robust, when the decision has more power, that's when women start missing in the room. So now we say, you need our money, then give us our share in the power structures.
Actually, what you just mentioned, it's amazing because our session post-lunch is on generational outcomes on health and wealth. And all of the people who are sitting here are actually going to be having the discussions after you finish.
So every discussion that you have, make sure that it ends with money for somebody. Any one of you or somebody that you know needs help. Because talk is cheap, money is not.
Yes. So I think everybody is going to be really, really happy here. So we have a very, very global audience, and
I can take questions.
yes, if any of you would like to ask questions, because that can just make it interactive. I know ma'am also has to leave, and we have to start.
No, I have to go back to the money.
Yes, she has to go back to the money, and you have inspired all of us. But any questions?
Ma'am, I spoke to you. My name is Diksha. My question is, in the next 10 years, 50% of global wealth will be controlled by women. But how are we preparing our infrastructure?
That's not 10 years. In fact, if you're talking about the Citibank number, the HSBC number, it's faster.
Idaho, yes.
It's faster.
Wow.
It's not 10 years. The idea is how do you accelerate it and make it 2 years?
2 years.
Which is, because women already have assets, they don't have control over it. They don't have control over how to double their asset value. We don't teach them that.
So education around financial education for women?
Education sounds very docile. Today, if you look at the female consumption and spend, 91% of what they spend on is housing. Now, if you take that 91% spend and turn it around and not limit that housing spend to rentals, but to teach them how to use that rental amount to own that capital asset, you're just helping them turn around how they look at that money. So that means they have the money, you can possibly engage with them to use that money better. The problem is the minute you take a position of saying, I will teach you, there goes half the effort out of the window. Because women are fed up of being talked down to and told, we will tell you how to do it. So I think that our language, our nature of interface with women has to change, even if we are women. Like I said, everybody who needs help is not at Davos. And the ones who really need help don't even manage to get out of their own cities. So how does this money, which is intention but not action, reach that person? That person does not have that agency to engage because language is a barrier. Apart from capital, the nature of engagement becomes a challenge. Apart from language being a barrier, even your own self-confidence and how do you create worth for yourself. And I'm saying this because I was born to a family between my two parents, they had $150. So how do we relate a capital asset to the ambition, and ambition is too stark a word, to the aspiration of women, and we begin that early. Sorry, I'm speaking at length on this. A small example which is personal. Opposite where my father and I sat, we were, when I was 7, he used to sell books on the streets of Delhi. And we used to even sell second-hand Time magazine. And every time I would sit him down and look, as a 7-year-old girl, he was always mocked that he does not have a son. I was the eldest. And every time I would sit and I would look dead ahead, he would ask me, he said, what the hell are you doing? I mean, obviously, he thought I was a space cadet. And I looked at all the plush houses that we were sitting in front of. And I said, who lives here? I live in Shantiniketan. Anybody who knows Delhi?
Yes.
Knows that that is the toniest of all addresses. So I said, who lives here? And he says, some of the most rich people of the national capital live there. I said, what if I have a house here? Now, how does a 7-year-old know you need to buy a house? Right? That's because I heard the mother say, one day I'll buy a house. Right? So I look at him and he just keeps quiet because it's an impossibility when you're selling books on the road. And what I did this July, after I demitted office, was buy the damn house. So how do you ignite that fire in a young girl that she needs to work towards capital to buy a house and not get married and spend it on a trousseau? 100%. And how do you have that conversation where you say, okay, let's say I don't want to buy a house and I want to buy jewelry. How do you ensure that she not only knows the value of the metal she's buying and not overpaying just for the design house? So every instrument where money is used, we look at financial literacy from a point of view, okay, let me sit you down, teach you how to do digital engagement now. Every cent, every penny, every paisa counts. If you suddenly start tuning the brains of young girls as to how they look at money and how they use language around money, everything changes. So if I'm amongst men with a lot of money to give, I say, please ensure that it fulfills the aspirations of women, because ambitious men don't want me to say, please help fulfill ambitions of women. Right? So we need to teach them the tenor of language around money. We need to teach women, and young girls especially, because older women know that we need it and we need to work towards it. But when you fine tune the minds of young women as to how to, build aspirations around money, many things change.
Yes, totally, ma'am. And would anyone from a health perspective or wealth, yes?
So this one.
Yes, please go ahead.
I have a twofold question for you. The first is from the UAE recently came up with a policy where 3 out of 10, every 10 board members need to be women.
We have that affirmative action in Indian companies as well.
Ma'am, can something like that be done for like entrepreneurship and capital, right? Where we talk about this.
You know what?
2%
As a
capital.
female, I was sent to fight the toughest of battles politically in places men could not win, not because I was a woman, but because I was the best damn fighter.
And you have fire in your belly, and we all have.
No, so I think when you want to make a case for business, make it based on competency. Because the minute you take competency, talent out and innovation out, you reduce it to a dole. And that is an injustice you don't want to do to female potential.
Ma'am, secondly, you had a background in media, so did I, and today I do something completely different. Incubate, that's who we are. How did you do it? How did you transition into government? In the most polite compliment.
My first social activism, when I got beaten by the police, was when I was 16.
Can you talk to us more about it? How did you
So
transition
I wanted to be a
into
cop.
government?
My father said you don't have the potential to take orders, so I became somebody who gave orders.
I love that line.
So I knew I did not have the wherewithal. When I began work as a 17-year-old, I worked on the streets of Delhi for a daily wage of 200 rupees, which is how many pounds?
2 pounds.
2 pounds. Yeah.
Like 2 pounds, 2 pounds.
Yeah, so I was busy making that little wage so that I can come to a position where I have enough to be an activist so that I can do without that regular wage. So even if you have an ambition to contribute, make sure that you can afford that activism. So I was very clear about how I wanted to leverage the activist self. I also realized many people think, and my problem was that I was a minister at 37, the youngest 2 years in a row, still in the party hierarchy, the youngest. So if not gender, age also became an impediment. But I started telling my male colleagues, I said the problem with being a woman, and I'd said this last when I was in London, that you have to act like a girl, think like a man, actually look like a girl, act like a lady, think like a man, and work like a horse. So I never did the act like a lady. I never looked like a girl, but I did kick around like a horse. And I think that when you do that, you live not for anything else but the opportunity just to be you. So I didn't divide my life, media, politics. For me, every day from that street, where I looked at the big people, in fact, one of his shops was on Dholakwa, I don't know how many Indians know that.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Opposite the Army Club,
Yeah.
where the big cars with the Indian flag and men in uniform would go. So there are two things I told him, as my father, in fact, literally wept when he saw me in that house. I told him that one day these men in those cars with those flags and those uniforms will salute me, and they did, the three chiefs, and that I'll buy the house. So my life was about going from that street to the President's Palace and get saluted by men in uniform that I admired. And everybody else was a part of the journey.
Thank you. One last question, anybody?
I think they're done with the Indian question.
From a global perspective, Sanskriti, do you want to answer anything?
A gentleman wants to be daring enough to ask for it. Yes.
Love being here. I had a question for you. What about the other side of the equation? My folks like me, men, like the deep-seated cultural issues that kind of keep women sort of down. I know you spoke on a few aspects.
One of the biggest misconceptions is only men in the global south have a problem.
No, I agree. I think it's globally. Yeah, so I'd love to hear your perspective on how do we change the deep-seated culture that's probably propagated over many
Governments can't
generations?
do it, thought leaders can't do it,
Yeah.
policymakers can't do it, only families can. Because you need to understand that children don't learn only from words, they learn from actions. And I have seen a 60-year-old man, just 4 months ago, a very accomplished gentleman internationally, weep in a car parking lot after seeing a film, saying, I never hugged my father when he was alive. The first time I hugged my father was when he died. Which means 50 years ago, that was a young man who could have done with a little bit of empathy within his family. So I think that the issue of men is more complex. We teach them not to need help. We teach them not to be verbose about their feelings. We actually teach them that the only response they may have to any situation is anger or silence. And who's teaching them that? So you may meet a man who's broken. Many women make the mistake of wanting to marry him and fix him. Just don't. but have those conversations to say, broken men don't make for emancipated women. So it has to be a partnership. But the problem is not only in our part of the world. There has to be a recognition that men world over need help and women world over need to be lifted up. It is not an Asian problem.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am, for inspiring us. And
Thank you for the
us.
conversation.
And thank you. And I would request all of you to go to Promenade 55.
Yes.
You all have to.
Let the
That's
money see
pledge.
your numbers.
Yes, all the CEOs in this room and the finance
So
people.
just as a to showcase that money does come when you show up in large numbers, productively so, and not only so that you're noise. We raised $4.5 million from Bill Gates.
Wow. So after the session is over at 3, I want to see everybody in Promenade 55.
Yes,
That's
please do, and let us know in all your endeavors how can we be of help so that we can spread our money to even your causes.
Thank you.